Hello, everyone. I am your host, Dr. Felissa DeRose, and I'm so excited about this particular episode of Discussing Diabetes Basics. Our topic today is how to count carbs. So, I have two wonderful guests here. They're going to share their experiences with counting carbs, and I'll let them introduce themselves, starting with Alexis.
Hi, I'm Alexis Newman. I am a registered dietitian. I have diabetes since I was 18 months old, and I'm happy to be here.
Oh, hi. My name is Tammy Snowden. I am a type 2 diabetic. I have had type 2 diabetes for about 5 years. And it's great to see you, ladies.
All right, thank you. So here's my first question for you two. I remember when I was first diagnosed with diabetes, I got these pamphlets on how to count carbs, and when I came home, I couldn't figure out anything. So, what is your advice for someone who is newly diagnosed or even needing a refresher on how to count carbs? What's the first step?
Well, I would say that Google is your friend in the sense like if you're eating out, if you want to get a general amount of carbs and say rice or sweet potato or something like that to kind of give you a landing point. Um, so that's usually where I would start. My Fitness Pal is a really great app too because they have listings of foods. So if you're looking for the grams of carbohydrates, you can even type in the brand of you're at Chick-fil-A chicken sandwich or something. And they'll be able to give you the exact amount of carbohydrates in that.
What I did when I first got it, well, I got pamphlets also, but no one said anything. And she basically just was like, stay under 1,500 calories a day, which meant nothing to me. But I don't like restrict all carbs, but I do. What I did do was I didn't eat carbs with every single meal. That was like my first starting point because I didn't know how many grams or how many I could eat per day. If I had carbs in the morning, I tried not to have them in the afternoon. If I had them in the afternoon, I didn't have them at night. So I kind of did like that. Like, okay, well, I won't eat, rice, heavy starches for one meal, and then I'll have some for a different meal, or that sort of thing. That was my basic jump off point. And it did help me until I could learn how to eat. And like she was saying, Google, I found a lot of online forums, that sort of thing. And I do use my Fitness Pal now because they have
Okay.
like this great little thing where you can like say how many grams of carbs you want to stay under and it'll help you. So
Oh, okay. All right. Well, we'll come back to technology so we can share that one. So, as you were thinking about My Fitness Pal, perhaps there are others that you use as well. Since you both have had diabetes for some time now, um, can you help someone understand why it's important to count carbs? Why is it important?
So the reason it's important is that we need to first talk about what a carbohydrate is. So it's anything that when we eat it, our body will digest it and it will turn into sugar. And so as someone who has diabetes, regardless of the type, if we eat something that turns into sugar, it's going to spike our blood sugar. So it's really important to know how many grams of carbohydrate are in the food so that we can plan our our way of managing our blood sugar, whether it's with insulin or other types of medications or exercise, or do you just want to plan your carbs? So carbs can be fruit, it can be cereal, cake, cookies, sweet potatoes, peas, things that break down into sugar. So that's the reason why.
Okay. So, a carbohydrate is not just like sweets. Like people say, oh, I don't eat any carbs, right? But then they're having fruit or they're having rice or they're having pasta. So,
Right,
exactly.
exactly. Of course, there's different types of carbohydrates in terms of like how our body breaks it down. So some carbs may turn into sugar a lot more quickly compared to others. But regardless, it's a carb is a carb, and they all turn into sugar. So
Okay. And so for you, Tammy, why is it important to count carbs?
Well, just like she said it pretty succinctly. You don't want to end up in a situation where you're having a blood sugar spike. Or for me, once I have a blood sugar spike, the low is usually pretty bad. So you could have a really big dip. You just want to try to stay balanced throughout the day instead of having highs and lows. So that's why it's a good idea to try to manage your carbohydrate intake, just so you have a balance throughout the day. You want to kind of stay even rather than jumping up and down. You know, that's for me, that's one of the reasons why I like to manage my carbohydrate intake.
mhm.
I understand. Um, so I remember not knowing what I could eat. So do you mind sharing with me and the audience, what are some of your go-to things? Perhaps it's low carb, or maybe you figured out how many carbs it is. Like, just personally, what do you have in your diet?
uh, I have, because I love things that crunch. So I'm usually a potato chip junkie, but now I use mixed nuts, and I get a big one, and I just, whenever I feel like I have to have that mouth feel of something crunchy that's not a potato chip, I get a fourth of a cup and I crunch down on mixed nuts. So that's my
Okay,
go-to.
what does a fourth of a cup of nuts look like, and how many carbs are in there?
Well, in this particular brand, Kirkland's brand, it is 6 grams of carbs for a fourth of a cup. A fourth of a cup is about a palmful. Like, it's that easy. You don't have to go hunt down a measuring cup. You just pour about, you fill up your palm. That's a fourth of a cup. You crunch on them, 6 grams. Um, you're golden.
All right, thank you for that. And Alexis, you have any snacks or go-to foods?
Um, well, this week my go-to, these are JoJo's gluten-free. I have a gluten allergy, so
Oh,
these are like really nice for a nice treat. So if I have 2 cookies, there are 20 grams of carbohydrates. So this would be like a nice snack that I like. Another snack I really love, this is like part of my breakfast. It's called 88 Acres. These are really yummy. They're like a nut bar. And so one bar has 22 grams of carbs, about 6 grams of protein, and it's tasty.
oh, okay.
Okay.
Now the JoJo is a what again? Is it's a
It's a chocolate with, it's kind of like a gluten-free Oreo.
Ooh,
Yeah.
where do you find those?
Trader Joe's.
Of
I was
course.
just gonna say that looks like something you find at Trader
Yes,
Joe's.
of course. I will be going to Trader Joe's.
It's so yummy. Yeah. But
Okay.
yeah, that was what we got this week as my treat. Um, Another snack I really like, this is when I'm like, ooh, I need something savory and sweet. So these are like dates.
Oh, I love Majol dates.
And then I put either a little dab of peanut butter in the middle or sunflower butter in the middle. So
And what does that do? Adding the peanut butter or sunflower? What did you say?
sunflower butter, yeah.
What is that?
So when you add a protein with a carbohydrate, it helps keep your blood sugar more stable. Whereas if I would just eat a date by itself, it could potentially just spike my blood sugar. Whereas if I add the peanut butter to it, it kind of lets it not spike so hard or so high. And 3 dates is a serving, and it has about 30 grams of carbs.
Okay. So where should a person try to keep their carb count? Now, I have to say, as a person who was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes and type 1 diabetes, the information I got about counting carbs was very different. So I think that this particular talk, with having a person from the type 2 community and type 1 is important. So when I was first diagnosed and lived 8 years as a person with type 2 diabetes, I was told to stick with 45 grams of carbs. My snacks could max at 30. And so I lived eating very restrictive. Once I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, I was pretty much told, just make sure you know how many carbs are in whatever it is you eat. And that's a very different message. So I'm curious to know what information you were told about carb counting in your particular diet in terms of maxes. Was there ever a max or a minimum, or keep your snacks within this area?
No, so I was diagnosed at such a young age. They just told my family to feed me well-balanced meals. So I was never put on a restrictive or carb counting meal plan. And that was like that was not normal back in 84 when I was diagnosed. And then I got on my insulin pump when I was 16 years old. And I don't even remember. I think I just ate whatever I wanted as long as I counted carbs. And back then, in my 16-year-old brain, everything was 15 grams. I would just cut like a bowl of pasta, 15 grams. Like, that's not what I'm recommending. That was just 16-year-old brain Alexis doing her thing. And praise God, I had no complications with blood sugars and stuff like that. A1C wasn't crazy high or anything. And then I went to, I volunteered at a diabetes camp, and I was like, my blood sugars were stable. I was like, what's happening? Why are my blood sugars stable? Well, because everything's not 15 grams of carbs, like we had to, for the campers, we had to weigh and measure everything. Everything was counted, from the salad dressing to the ketchup to like things I never even did as a kid myself. And at this point, I was in my 20s when I was a counselor there. So I really never put myself on a restriction. I dabbled in low carb for a season and I hated it. My body didn't like it. I was cranky and tired. So I just kind of eat what I like and try and be mindful about portion size so I know how many carbs.
Got you. Thank you. And Tammy, your experience?
I was never told anything. I was diagnosed much later than you ladies. I was 45, I think. So I was kind of told, just lose weight, don't eat more than 1,500 calories a day. Got no information about carbs at all. I had to Google everything. It wasn't until I found a dietitian who kind of gave me a loose idea, but I did do a strict carb counting at the beginning, but it was impossible. It seemed like it was impossible for me. It was too few. I would have, in the middle of the night, I would be at 50, wake up sweating. It was, so now I basically, what Alexis was saying, I kind of go by portion size. So like, I don't, if I have a carb, it's no bigger than the palm of my hand, not my entire hand, the palm of my hand. So I kind of go by that. And if I have a carb in the morning, I don't have one in the evening. But there are some pamphlets out there that I saw where they're like, stay around 45 grams for the day of carbs. I had a hard time with it. It was because I lift weights. It was, I would be starving by the end of the day. And then I would just binge. It was terrible. So I go by portion control, the portion sizes. And if I have a carb at one meal, I don't have it at the next.
Thank you. So I just have two more questions remaining, and I'm going to give them to you both at the same time so that you can weave the answers to both. So the last two questions are, one, Do you have any type of websites or technology apps that you could recommend? I know we said MyFitnessPal, but if there is another one, maybe you can tell those watching this that or listening. And then the second is, what is a word of advice you can give someone who's newly diagnosed, who's learning carb counting for the first time?
Another resource I've used is the website called calorieking.com.
Oh, I love calorie.
I like that because it's a little more reliable than just Googling. I know early on I said, just Google, and that just was the first thing that came to mind. But to be more specific, because Google can get a little crazy out there, I would say look at calorieking.com. When I was diagnosed, it was an actual book, it wasn't the internet. So I would carry my little book with me everywhere I would go and look up the little grams of carbs. So I use that. Also, we already mentioned the Fitness Pal, but those are the two main things I really look at. Yeah, my Fitness
Okay,
Pal.
and any advice?
Yeah, the advice, I would say just take it one meal at a time, right? If you think you measured your grams of carbs correctly and then you have a blood sugar that you were not looking for, just kind of take that information and see if there was anything different. Like, did you add more butter or more protein, or was it a true measurement? Did you have a little bit more or a little bit less? And then try and make a decision off of that information. You know, there's no moral compass in terms of blood sugars or food intake. There's no good or bad food. So really fight against the mindset of like, I ate this or I had a bad blood sugar I wasn't looking for, and therefore I'm a bad person or I did bad. So that's kind of my
Thank you. I love that. I'm writing it down. No moral compass, no good food, no bad food. Don't make yourself feel bad about eating something. And I do want to say Calorie King, which is my favorite, they have an app. So it's one of the apps
oh,
that I keep in
Yes.
my phone.
I like her. I use Calorie King. It's awesome. I use my Fitness Pal sometimes, but only because I also use um what is it? It has a sister app that goes with it, but it's only for fitness. So when you exercise and you log it, it goes over to my Fitness Pal, and you can see it'll tell you like, well, you've eaten this much food and you've exerted this much energy, and so that can also help you. I That's what I use to, like, I guess, to like just see where I am during the day. So I do use those, and I love Calorie King. Whew, I also use I have these little books called Eat This Not That, because I eat out at restaurants a lot. So that is really helpful app that it's not, I don't know if it's an app, but I use the book. So if I go into a restaurant, I go through the little book and I'm like, I'm gonna order this. I choose my meals up front, so I'm ready when I get there. And I'm not tempted to be like, chips and salsa by the bucket, please. I guess, like she was saying, there's no moral compass. I typically talk to people who eat a lot of canned food or frozen food, because they live in communities where it's difficult for them to get fresh foods or to get to a grocery store. And so I would say that if you have use what you have, you're going to be fine. You don't have to, be able to go to Whole Foods in order to manage good blood sugar. So don't think that, well, I'm doomed anyway, I might as well just do whatever. You can manage your diabetes with what you have on hand. You just have to be mindful of your portions.
so
Thank you. I think you both gave some really good nuggets there. One, food, no moral compass to it, and then be prepared when you go to a restaurant so that you aren't scarfing down all the appetizers endlessly. Okay, thank you so much for your time, ladies. Can you tell us where we can find you? Are you available on website, social media? Plug yourselves.
I am on Instagram at Femigog, Femigog. And I'm also on Facebook at that same place. And I'm also on YouTube at Movies, Meals, and Me. And I just talk about eating with a budget for type 2 diabetes.
Okay, thank you.
Nice. So you can find me on Instagram for all things diabetes, family, fitness, faith at Lady Lex, LADIELEX. And then my professional site where I talk more about nutrition education is Alexis underscore M underscore Newman, NEWMAN. So.
All right, thank you. This has been great. I hope those people who are new to carb counting and are looking for inspiration and conversation, they find this very enjoyable. Thank you again for your time. I appreciate it so much, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Alexis.